Hey all, thanks for joining. Today we're going to spend a little bit of time learning about how to make private dashboards. Dashboards are a powerful tool within the current managed services offering, and by default you actually get some dashboards that come with the service. So you'll see several of these. However, a lot of times these aren't everything that you need, and you're going to need to create your own. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of time today to learn about how to create a dashboard for yourself. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come over here, we're going to click Add Dashboard, and I want this to be a private dashboard. I want it to only be available to me. And we're going to run an example today where we're going to monitor a KVM server. So we're going to call the dashboard KVM Hypervisor, and we're going to click Save. So this now gives us a blank canvas to work from, and we need to get some information that's important to us. So the very first thing we need to do is let's add a widget. And when we're looking at the hypervisor, there's going to be several things that are important to us. The processor, the disk, and the bandwidth. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the processor. So I'm going to add a custom graph. And we'll call this KVM CPU. And we need to add data to this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click the plus sign at graph data. And we're going to select our group. So in here, we're going to look at the Lexington hypervisor, and we need a device. I happen to know that this is 110.7, so we're going to use that. And then we're looking for a data source. So we're going to go ahead and we're actually going to do the CPU core stats. And I'm not interested in one of these. I'm actually interested in all of these. However, you can see where you can select individual ones if you're looking at a specific problem or you need help with just a specific proc. So from here, we're going to select that we're actually getting the CPU. We're going to leave the default there, and I'm going to click Save. We're going to want this in percentages. I'm going to select Vast here just so that we get a little more detail in our graph. And then I'm actually interested in this for the last 24 hours. The color scheme isn't really important, but as you'll see a little bit later, we're going to be able to see different information a little bit better, depending on the colors you choose. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. As you can see, we now have all of our CPU cores in a single graph, and you can see how hard the actual server is running. So the next thing we need to look at is memory. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add another widget. And for memory, we're just going to add a big number. Call this KVM memory, and let it read there. Go ahead and add a data point. So for this data point, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go ahead and find my server. Again, the device is 110.7. The star in these example means select everything, so it actually acts as a wildcard for you. And the data source here, we're going to pick our memory usage. In this particular case, we're going to select that data point. And I'm actually interested here in the active memory percent. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Since we only have one number, this isn't really important. It'll fill in by itself. But if you want to see it, you can actually select between the positions that are available, and you can actually give data points and different labels to each of these. So I'll go ahead and select that. And here again, we'll pick just a color, give you some options of what they actually look like. And this gives us the actual current active memory. So we now have CPU, we have memory. Let's take a look at bandwidth. So for bandwidth, we're actually going to add two widgets. We'll add inbound and outbound. And I'm going to do this as a pie graph. So we'll select in bandwidth first. And I'm going to go ahead and follow roughly the same thing. You'll notice some of the consistency here in how these set up. I'm going to select my device. And for the data source, having some problems finding my data source here. There it is. And in here, again, you'll notice that we have all these interfaces. I am interested in all of them, so we're going to select the star. And then I want to actually do inbound megabits. And for this one, we're going to select top 10. So what this will do is give us the top 10 interfaces on our hypervisor that are running the hardest. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save there. This is still a top 10 graph. I'll go ahead and make this one dark blue again, and we'll click Save and Close. So that gives us our first pie chart, and we're going to repeat that process over again. Go ahead and select pie. This time we're going to look at the outbound bandwidth. Repeat the process over again here. So, demo Lexington, I'm going to grab the hypervisor. Want it to be this. And need to find my interface stats again. Again here, I want to make sure I'm selecting all of them. This time I'm going to select out megabits. Remember, we want to keep these consistent, so that's going to be a top 10. And we'll go ahead and make this one light blue. I'll go ahead and click Save and Close. As you can see, we now have CPU, memory, and bandwidth. So the last thing we want to do is we want to look at what our disk is doing. So for this, we're going to actually add another custom graph. We'll go ahead and call this KVM disk. And we need to add data points here. Grab the hypervisor, grab my device, and we're going to have to do file system. Now, we actually have two. We have a large disk and a regular capacity. We actually want both of these. So what we're going to do is we're going to select large first. We're going to make sure we select all of the instances available here. And I want % used. So we're going to do % used large. And I'm going to select Save. Now, instead of finishing here, what we're going to do is we're going to come back and we're going to add another data point. And here, we're going to go ahead and do all of the same things over again where this information is identical. But here, I'm going to select the second one. And we're going to select star again. And so, as you can see, we get the exact same options, but we will pick up all of the same information. I'm going to change the name down here so that they are discernible. When we click Save, we're going to go ahead and say numbers, scale, and we want to use vast again for a little more detail, and we want this to be in 24 hours. And then we'll go ahead and change this to be dark blue. I'm going to click Save and Close, and then much like our CPU graph, we get our file system capacity now. So one of the things I wanted to show you was how you can actually see things a little bit better depending on what colors you choose. So if I change this from solid blue to our outline blue, it does get a little bit easier to see. So that's basically how you create custom private dashboards. So private is this is only available to me. Public in the case is available to anyone who has the current login to your current instance. This means that for all intents and purposes, public is not public with the entire internet per se. It is only public within your instance. So good luck, play with it, have fun, and I will hopefully see you in the next episode. Take it easy. Bye for now.